Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us. I was kind of under the impression I'd have a year to get ready for this seat, but somebody kicked out my training wheels, and Craig assures me he'll keep me out of trouble. So with that, I'll call this Compass Board meeting to order. This is February 23rd, 1:35 p.m. And with that, I'll ask for a roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Drew Alexander.
Here.
For Rod Beck, Christy Inselman.
Here.
Jason Brinkman.
Here.
Zach Brooks. Let's see, Zach Pipemeyer. Bree Bush. Bob Callahan. Trevor Chadwick.
Here.
Elaine Clegg.
Here.
Kathy Corliss. Brian Davidson.
Here.
For Tom Daly, Richard Beck.
Here.
Corey Dickard. Miranda Gold. Kent Goldthorpe.
Here.
Amy Halliburton. Rick Hogaboam.
Here.
Brad Holton. Jackie Hutchison or Tim O'Meara.
Here.
Dan Heyer.
Here.
Bill Jacobs.
Here.
Chelsea Johnson. Lindy Lindstrom. Mary May.
Here.
Rob McDonald.
Here.
Matt Newton. Patricia Nilsson.
Here. Here.
John Overton. John Overton.
Here, if you can hear me.
Thank you. Eric Phillips. Brad Pike.
Here.
Tom Points.
Here.
David Porterfield. Matt Qualls. David Reinhardt.
Here.
Michael Rocco.
Here.
Dale Reynolds. Charlie Roundtree. Robert Simison.
Dave Miles here for Mayor Simpson.
Thank you. Dave Left.
Here.
Joe Steer. Clay Tucker.
Here.
Leslie Van Beek. Cody Lund. Nikki Zog.
Present.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Do we have any announcements or open discussion?
Mr. Chair. Thank you. I just wanted to let the board know that we've received communication from Elmore County. So for folks, just to make everyone aware, the executive committee asked me to reach out to some of our neighboring counties with the success and the participation we've had from Boise County and the growth patterns that we're looking at. We're starting to look down the road to where the Metropolitan Planning Organization may need to expand after the 2030 census. I met with Elmore County Board of Commissioners in early January, and they are interested in joining Compass. So I'll be taking their request to the executive committee for first action or for review, and then potentially bringing that then to the board after that.
Hey,
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to kind of reintroduce myself to folks. Council member Jimmy Halliburton from the city of Boise. I actually served on this board when I was first elected in 2020 to 2022. The mayor took the spot for the last, I think, 4 years, and then I've taken her spot back here again. So you will see less of the mayor. You will see more of me here think I've met everybody here at least a couple times before, but wanted to reintroduce myself, and I'm excited to join everybody else on the board.
Thank you. Do we have anything for this inter-county or metropolitan planning, or is?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, there are no items that are designated specifically for inter-county or Metropolitan Planning Organization.
Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Not? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Thank you. We have some special items, recognition of outgoing Compass board members. I'll ask Greg to handle that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, we just wanted to acknowledge the service of some of the outgoing board members, and then I'll also note some of our newer board members as well. Just want to recognize the participation in the Compass Board by Lauren McLean, Mayor of City of Boise, Jordan Morales, Council Member from City of Boise, Debbie Kling from Mayor of City of Nampa, John Evans, former Mayor of City of Garden City, Jerem Wagner, the former Mayor from City of Caldwell, and John Laraway, who is a council member from City of Kuna and is no longer on the board. And then just want to welcome then, in addition to Council Member Halliburton, back to the board. I didn't know that, so that's good to know too. Thank you. Bree Bush from City of Boise, Senior Policy Advisor to the Mayor. Mayor Rick Hogelbaum from City of Nampa. Bill Jacobs, Mayor of City of Garden City. Eric Phillips, the Mayor of City of Caldwell. And Michael Rocco, Council Member from City of Kuna.
Item B here, member agency presentation. City of Middleton, Jason Van Gilder. Welcome and thank you for your presentation in advance.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the opportunity to present. Again, my name is Jason Van Gilder. I'm the Public Works Director for the City of Middleton, here to give you a little snapshot on what Middleton has been doing, is currently doing, and the challenges we face coming up, what's in progress. So that's what I'm going to talk about. The good news is we've got to go back about 5 years to compare with what Nampa and ACHD probably do every week, but here we go. The bad news is I have probably 44 slides, but I'm going to get through it in 10 minutes. So let's go. So talking about Nampa, here is Nampa as shown on the current functional classification map that's adopted by the city. You'll know that, see that as well. We'll run through what we've done and start with what we've done. South Cemetery Road was completed in about 2021, 22 timeframe. That extended major connector down back towards Middleton Road from Highway 44 and gives us a nice loop and connectivity south of the highway. Hartley Signal went in about 2023. That was our second signal in town. We were a 2-signal town for a little bit, and that is functioning and was a great add to the city. Gives us some better connectivity to the high school up north. 9th Street connection. I think that jumped in there. Did I jump in there too far? Cemetery signal. We're now a 3-light signal. This was a strategic grant initiative that we won about 3 years ago and put in this light. This has been a huge, another huge addition to our city to really get traffic flowing through our city. So we're thankful for the governor's program to do that. In conjunction with that, we put in a small connector road just north of our one of our elementary schools. That was about 500 feet of road, but really gave a great connectivity across east-west. We have great north-south connectivity in Middleton, but not so much east-west. This was a key piece of the east-west that really helped us out. This was funded with transportation impact funds. The sidewalk was actually funded with transportation, the Safe Routes to School funding, what's called now transportation program. Dewey Road culvert replacement. We had a failing culvert in the middle of one of our major north-south roads that we took up and completely rebuilt. That was that's been needed to be done for a couple of years. The road was starting to sink and fail there. So we restored that last year. That's been another thing we've been able to do. Other things that we're generally doing, we did a new pavement management plan update. Following that, we've resumed some chip seals on roads for road preservation. We moved into the salt applying world. We have not done that in Middleton until about 2-3 years ago. I don't think we have done it this year, but it's not because we haven't had the salt. Restarted our annual small bridge inspections. Impact fees are updated. We have a joint impact fee with Highway District 4 and the portion of Star that's within Canyon County. So those are updated and continuing to function and serve our citizens as well. And then finally, roadway restriping. I have to give a big thank you to Napa and Tom's crew that came out there and was able to help us with that had needed to be done. So that's what we have done in the last 5 years. Looking at what we are doing now, in progress, we have a realignment of Middleton Road. This has been studied since probably 20 years now, or take that back, about 10 years. They had a Middleton Road corridor, and that Middleton Road, if you take that in north or take that north into Middleton, you'll see it. You'll kind of veer left and then come into a T intersection. And that was done because the railroad used to go right through there. And so they had to realign Middleton Road. Railroad no longer goes through there. And this is an attempt to re-straighten Middleton Road and connect Middleton Road south of 44 to the Middleton Road that goes north of 44. Really a major corridor there that had been kind of blocked by that curve. So that is in progress and happening now. South Dewey Bridge replacement. This is another of the government's leading Idaho programs. It's the bridge replacement project. That bridge is load rated and is scheduled to be replaced and get a major upgrade here in the near future. We have in progress Middleton and Lincoln Roundabout. This is a project we're doing in conjunction with City of Caldwell and Highway District 4. It's actually on the border of Middleton and Caldwell, so it's a great project to kind of all partner together. So far, Middleton and Highway District 4 have paid for the design portion of the job. Caldwell's going to follow up with the right-of-way section, and then we'll all figure out how to pay for it once we're past that point. But that's, again, part of that main Middleton Road corridor that's been studied and ongoing for about 10 years. And that's what we think it will look like someday. So we're going to shift the alignment a little bit because right now it's an offset alignment. That'll fix that challenge there. Middleton Road culvert slip lining. We've got a couple more culverts that are in need of repair. Those happened last week, the week before. That's still in progress. That's our culverts that was before they were slip lined. They're just eroding and we want to stay on top of that. Middle Quarry East entrance. There is a large development coming to the left of where that 11 is on the screen. With that development coming in, that's a very large development, 300, 400 homes. They have in their development agreement to build a roundabout once we provide them the right of way. We're closing on the right of way here in the next couple of weeks, and then that'll be another roundabout that will facilitate north-south traffic through that corridor. And that's what we help to do that. One note with that, not only is that a developer funding chunk of that, developer is doing a larger section of Middleton Road as the 5 lanes for the future build out, being funded through the urban renewal development. Instead of coming in phases with the development, they've been able to work with the urban renewal district to do a much larger section in conjunction with this roundabout so that it can all happen now, and then they can get paid, reimbursed with urban renewal funds. So that's a great example of how those funds help cities like us and help get things done now. Moving on, what things we need to work on. Cemetery and pedestrian improvements. Compass just helped us with a grant application for this. We did not when we had partnered with Napa and Caldwell on a couple pedestrian improvements and came up just a little short, but we'll try again here as opportunities rise. This is an interesting one. This is Cemetery Road, and it's actually by the cemetery right there. It's got some tricky geometry. You kind of come over a curve. So you have some sight distance things. You have a large parking lot to one side, and then you have a speed limit that isn't always followed, is rarely followed, maybe is a better way to say that. So the cemetery is not real excited about backing their tractors out onto the roadway. They have people crossing, kind of a vulnerable population crossing that road from time to time, and would like something better to happen. What we've talked about is focusing the pedestrian traffic into a single crosswalk, and then being very proactive and intentional about our signalization, getting maybe a hawk light or and a number of things to cue drivers in that this is a pedestrian area happening. So that's the challenge there. We have just above Willis, which is just above our high school, we have a pathway that kind of comes out on the wrong side of the road from the high school. We have kids crossing there. Would be good to get a pedestrian crossing in there to make that safer for all of them. We have a plan to do that. We don't have funding yet, but we're looking around and seeing what we can do. The school district may even be a partner on that. Right down from that road, Hartley and Willis intersection is another intersection with some challenges. We have sidewalk on just one corner of that. The northwest corner, we have sidewalk currently in place. The southeast corner, we have a trail, but no actual curb ramps onto the roadway. The northwest side, we're lacking sidewalk, or northeast side, we're lacking sidewalk for about a block on both ways. And then the southwest corner is a development that's a couple of years off. And so we're not sure when sidewalks are going to be there. But it's right down the high school, and we get a large amount of pedestrian traffic through there. So we'd like to tackle pedestrian, make that safer for this intersection. It's also a difficult intersection from a driver standpoint. You can't see it real well there, but on the northwest corner, there is a very large power pole there that kind of makes it challenging for stops from the north side to see east and west. So this may be something that we look at a roundabout in the future, and maybe a small urban type grant application. Meadow Park Half Road, through some odd circumstances, the city acquired half of the right of way. The other half did not come in with the development because they had a little flag lot split before that. So we need to acquire that second part of the right of way and then build the other half of the road. That's important for our regional connectivity. The school also has a site just down this road that will probably be something they build on in the future. So this kind of puts a little extra impetus to get this road in place. Duff and 44 intersection. One challenge we do have all along 44 is a lack of places to safely protect turning movements onto 44. This is probably the next biggest one for the city. We've already addressed Hartley. We've addressed Cemetery. This one becomes the next challenge for us. Right now, the city only touches one corner of the intersection, so HD4 is taking a bit of a lead on this, but we're working with ITD and hoping to move that forward in the near term. There's our intersection there with just one corner in the city. Middleton and 44 intersection. We talked about we're straightening Middleton Road right now. We have traffic kind of coming that way. Right now, that turns into what is Murphy Street, and Murphy Street is a small little 2-lane road. We suspect that as that Middleton Road opens up, that's going to bring more traffic to there and compound the challenges right there at that intersection. So we've talked with ITD over the years about what might happen at that intersection, and that'll probably be a more prominent conversation as the straightening of Middleton Road happens. We have a neighborhood with aging infrastructure. It doesn't actually looks a little worse than maybe even in those pictures. We have missing sidewalks in places. We have roads that are just at the end of their service life with curbs through the middle, across roadways that are really failing. This is kind of a transportation issue, but it's on top of, we've got a piped storm drainage pipe that's really failing. We need to move some sewers from backyards to front yards. We have 2-inch galvanized water mains in the area. So the whole area is just at the end of its service life and needs our rehabilitation. But on top of all those things, it's going to be a significant transportation project to rehab that neighborhood. Another project we have, our downtown sidewalks promenade. We have an older urban renewal district in downtown Middleton. They had cleaned up, or they had created a promenade about 15 years ago with some stamped brick concrete along the walkways, some decorative lights, really cleaned it up. They got about halfway through town and did that half, kind of the Ridley's half, up to Subway, if you know Middleton. From Subway to what is Piccadilly Park, if you know Middleton, those sidewalks need a lot of help. The one up top is not atypical for what's there. We really don't have ADA accessibility through there. So we are looking at, can we do a project to do that? That might be a great final project for the downtown urban renewal district to complete with the balance of their funds. The balance of their funds probably won't do the whole project, so it'll probably be a partnership with the city, may also be a grant opportunity for some downtown revitalization. We may also seek to partner with ITD on some of the curb ramp portions for their facilities. What's next? Oh, last major project is really going to shape Middleton for a long time. It's the ITD's planning, long-term planning for what they envision for State Route 44. That's a much longer conversation than this. And if I included that, there's no way I would get this into 10 minutes. And I'm probably pretty close to 10 minutes right here. So that is a large one that we want to note, but I'll be glad to answer questions on that. Backing up. Oh, she warned me that I could go too fast, too quickly. So that's the map of what we've got there. We've got projects completed from 2020 to 2026 in green. We have projects currently in progress in 2026, also in green, and then kind of our list of other things around Middleton. So you see it's spread throughout the city, largely along that downtown corridor is where most of our projects are, but we do have some out in our suburbs, particularly towards our high school. So with that, I thank you for the opportunity, and we're glad to answer any questions folks might have from Middleton.
Any questions? Thank you very much, Jason. I enjoyed the presentation. It got me more familiar with Middleton. Thank you. Moving on, in our action items, adoption of resolution 06-2026, amending the TIP. Tony, going to handle that for us. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. And this item is for a TIP amendment, and I will cover at a very high level the amendments that we're asking for today. There is one project that is requesting a scope change and 2 new projects to be added to the Transportation Improvement Program. So we'll cover those at a high level. The first one is a correction. Back in December, we brought you a new project for Boise State University through Valley Regional Transit. We added 3 vehicles at that time, but there was a little bit of wire crossing, and this project really should have had only 2 vehicles. There was another one that was involved in a different key number. And so we are just making a correction today to remove one of those vehicles from this project. It doesn't change the intent of what Boise State needed, but it is a scope change for the project. The next 2 are adding additional projects. One of them is the transit compressed natural gas fueling infrastructure in the cities of Boise and Nampa. This is through a Federal Transit Administration. We call it a low-no grant. It's the low and no emissions grant, which is a national competitive grant. This one would add compressed natural gas facilities at the Orchard facility in the city of Boise, as well as the Happy Day Transit facility in the city of Nampa, and also add a gas pipeline in the city of Nampa at the wastewater treatment plant to convert some of that wastewater gas into the CNG fueling infrastructure. The next one is for the city of Boise. It was through the Safe Streets and Roads for All. This is considered a demonstration grant, and it would take Fairview Avenue, where there is 320 crashes over the last 5 years, and work with the residents and businesses along that corridor to develop what types of projects could help the safety within that corridor, and then complete some temporary safety improvements. And then all of those types of improvements could be added to the Regional Safety Action Plan for possible implementation across the region. So we'll see how much benefit these projects would make after working with the community to determine what those might be. So we did go out for public comment between January 12th and 26th, and we received 6 comments. This is just a brief explanation of what those comments were. We didn't recommend any changes based on the comment, but we do recommend that you read all of these comments. They were very thoughtful and coming in from the folks who commented on these projects. So I will stand here for questions and do let you know that the Regional Transportation Advisory Committee did recommend approval of this action on January 28th.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question. Just to clarify, and the words are up there, this is all coming from grant money and it won't impact any other projects. I get greatly concerned about my 44 project.
Both of the new projects are nationally competitive grants and will not affect anything, and the other one is Federal Transit Administration dollars.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion. I would like to.
Okay, you can make the motion.
Move that Compass Board adopt resolution number 06-2026 for the purpose of amending the FY 2632 regional TIP.
I'll
I'll
second.
second that.
Very good. Any other discussion? Not? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tony. Now we'll have a adoption resolution 07-2026. Austin Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Austin Miller, Principal Planner, Planning Team Lead here at Compass. This item will be seeking your approval on Let's Ride Treasure Valley. This is the High Capacity Transit Planning and Environmental Linkages Study. So for many of you, there we go. Many of you, I hope this is familiar. We've had this conversation a couple times, but for those newer members of the audience, I wanted to give a brief background of the project, then dive into the purpose and need of the project, provide an overview of those public outreach and stakeholder engagement efforts that we undertook, share the results, including that federal approval, and then seeing admittedly that is cramming 2 years worth of work into an 8-minute long presentation. I will gladly pause and answer any questions that come up along the way. So without delay, let's get on into it. So our region, we've been evaluating high capacity transit for over 2 decades now. So one thing that was important when we brought this back to before you all in 2023 was that we wanted to start this project off to make sure it was building on those past planning efforts to inform what our next steps would be as we move forward. One example of those past efforts was our All Aboard survey back from 2021. Hopefully some of you took it. I certainly remember I did at the time. But in the survey, we had over 12,000 responses So we wanted to make sure that all of this valuable feedback that we've received is being incorporated and really furthering the development of this project moving forward. However, admittedly, we didn't know exactly how to do that at the time. So after some conversations with the Federal Transit Administration, it was recommended that a planning and environmental linkages, or PEL study, was the best route for us to take as we move forward. The PEL study really provides a framework that sets us up for a more streamlined future environmental analysis and that review process, while being able to build on those past planning efforts that we've already undertaken. And it really importantly gives us the ability to narrow the potential options or outcomes in a more federally recognized manner than some of our localized planning efforts had done up to this point. So essentially, this bridges the gap between those local planning efforts with that federal environmental review process that would be needed if it were to move forward. So we partnered with HDR and Jacobs in 2023 to help us along this way. To begin a PEL process, you must first define what you are hoping to achieve and why. This is what we call the purpose and need of the project. So for this project, the purpose you all set back in 2024 had us focus on that east-west travel pattern between the region's 4 largest cities, really emphasizing those areas that are most likely to support and most likely to be supported by high-capacity transit service. This was needed. Tell me if you guys have heard this before, but our region is growing. So that is a big part of our need here. In the forecast, we see even more of that growth on its way. So combined with how east-west centric our travel patterns are, we're anticipating the transportation system will suffer in ways, increasing congestion and travel times by potentially up to 50%. So we want to make sure that we're planning accordingly. In order to get there, in this study, we did a 3-tiered evaluation process, each of which has its own stakeholder and public engagement component to it. The first tier ultimately was the most broad. Do the options, or what I'll be referring to as alternatives, considered support the purpose and need? Yes or no, kind of as simple as that. Tier 2 is where we started to refine the alternatives a little bit more and compare them both qualitatively and quantitatively to each other to get a better sense of where that actual value lied within them. And then tier 3 is where we dove in deep to each of the top 3 remaining alternatives. We were comparing them directly to each other at this point to determine which of them is going to be the most beneficial to our region. Throughout this process, we had a host of stakeholders that helped. So really a thank you to all of them. In addition to working with various stakeholder groups, RTAC, you all, we're also meeting with the rail owners and operators, our tribal communities, as well as federal agencies to make sure that everyone had a voice in this project that we're undertaking. Our efforts started with ultimately 10 different route options, as well as what we call a no-build option that was serving as our baseline throughout. In Tier 1, we were able to reduce the list down to 4 routes. In our outreach, we were able to get confirmation that our process and reasoning was sound in this step. In Tier 2, we were able to narrow the list down to 3, what we were calling route and mode pairings. So this is where it was determined what mode of transit, be a bus rapid transit or some form of train, worked best with the remaining routes. Again, we shared the process and the reasoning with the public stakeholders and you all. This step led to a refinement in one of our routes where we combined the Fairview Avenue route with the Franklin Road route. So we used Fairview Avenue in Boise and then dropping down along Meridian Road here in downtown Meridian, connecting us along Franklin back out to Nampa. In Tier 3, This is where we shared the final comparative results via an online survey to see how folks felt about what those final results, and really to do the whole project overview of how did we get here. Ultimately, based on the measures that we had used, each alternative, they had their pros and cons. Certainly to make it to tier 3, there had to be some value. But again, this is where we dive deep. Which one is most beneficial? Commuter rail along the Boise cutoff fared the best in most of our scoring categories. So this alternative was the top performing in anticipated demand, capacity, travel time. So functionality, it was really scoring the best. Also in terms of the ability to preserve, the amount of private property owners impacted by a potential project, this was also the top performing option. So these results were all provided to the public and our stakeholders to review, and how we landed on commuter rail along the existing rail corridor was the most beneficial option to our region. When we provided it out for response, their response was resoundingly in favor of that Boise cutoff alternative, really valuing the efficiency and the potential ridership it had provided. It also, we heard that they felt like it got to the key destinations they were hoping to access throughout the region, such as our downtowns, the Idaho Center, Boise Town Square Mall, things like that. We also asked what the biggest challenges were that people could see. Property acquisition and funding were at the top of the list, with impacts to crossings of some of our local streets being next. The cutoff fared well to moderate in each of these perceived challenges, so that was reassuring as we moved forward as well. So with the data, as well as the public input, all pointing to commuter rail along the Boise cutoff alternative, the Compass Board, I was before you all back in August, you designated that the alternative was the preliminary locally preferred alternative for this Pell study moving forward. This allowed us as staff and the consultant team to get to work on completing the formal document and our recommendations for implementation, which are included in your packet. That was all provided to the Federal Transit Administration back in November. We received their acceptance letter last month that is in your packet as well. And so then, therefore, I am before you today seeking your approval. So with that said, while the Pell study does mark a big step forward in the federal process, and it can help expedite that federal environmental process, there's still several steps that our region would need to take and work through together if this project is to progress towards implementation. And with that, I'm glad to stand for any questions you all may have before getting to a recommended motion.
Mr. Chair. Yeah, just a question here. So there's been a ton of work that's been put into this for years and years and years, and especially recently. I'm kind of curious at this point, we've got a resolution in front of us. What are the opportunities that are created if we approve it? Why are we approving it? What are the challenges if we don't?
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Chair, Councilman Halliburton, approving this item today will give our region really clear direction, both from a high capacity transit standpoint, but also for you all's member land use agencies as to what we are planning around. It's not necessarily saying that high capacity transit will happen in the region or will happen at any given time, but it is making sure we have a cleared vision for if this does make sense to move forward within our region. Where will it be? What is it going to look like? Who will it serve? And provide that clear direction for all of our agencies as we move forward. Then if we do proceed to the federal environmental process, it does expedite that process as well as another benefit.
Yeah, I imagine that, like was outlined, funding is going to be one of the bigger challenges here. I also would imagine that having this approved would create opportunities for us if federal funding or other funding sources did become available. Having this already approved gives us some advantages in getting access to that funding. Maybe that's an assumption, but can you talk a little bit about that?
Mr. Chair, Councilman Halliburton. Yeah, at this time, funding is an unknown, so we will be working with you all as to how to proceed from that standpoint. But this certainly does set us up to continue that conversation moving forward.
Any other questions? We have a motion. Recommended motion. You have a question online? Go ahead.
Okay.
Kent, you had a question?
This is me, Kent.
Yes.
Yeah, no question. I just was going to let you know it's mainly a matter of consistency. I voted against this in August, and I'll be voting against it today.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll put a motion on the table. I move that we adopt resolution 07-2026, approving Let's Ride Treasure Valley.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Yeah, and if I can just add a couple comments here. I think there's a saying that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago and the next best time to plant a tree is today. I really look at this as an opportunity. We're not putting anything in the ground at this point, but we're making sure that we have additional opportunities to get those trees planted, to make sure that we're protecting what we can, to have a vision there. It would be great to be able to go back in time on, our interstate, on Eagle Road, on all types of major projects, knowing what we know about how things are going to grow and think about how things could be done differently. I imagine that there's going to be some challenges in getting commuter rail or any form of rail, that connect our cities. But I also imagine that those challenges are going to get harder and harder over time. And if we can adopt a well-done study that a ton of work has gone into it, that opens the doors for ongoing conversations, potential funding, partnership, and collaboration, to me, this just makes a lot of sense, not only for our cities, I think, but really for the people who live there. And for me, I'm also a teacher. I teach out at CWI. And I think about my students who are going to and from Nampa to Boise every single day, and they've got a commute that's sometimes taking 45 minutes unless there's one car that has a flat tire or a little bit of weather or somebody who got pulled over on the side of the road and all of a sudden it's taking an hour and 30 minutes. So that predictability, even with the situation that we have right now, is so tough. I think this just opens up the doors to have some potential solutions to some problems. And if we were to delay it today, I think we would have a hard time getting something up and started again. So I think it makes sense to move forward.
Any other comments?
I feel like I need to make just at least a couple of comments. Just mainly VRT stands ready to work on this as well as Compass. We're not expecting Compass to carry all the water on this. We've already received a grant as a subrecipient to do a further study that I think takes advantage of something that isn't mentioned in this study, and that's the fact that there's capacity on this rail line to actually move more freight. And if we could move more freight and more people on this particular right-of-way, it could make a tremendous difference on the other right-of-ways that are traveling east-west. So just know that we're committed to figuring out a way to make this work that isn't just good for transit, but that is really good for the valley in general, and stand ready to work with Compass and other partners to make sure that we do that well.
Thank you very much. With that, we've already got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next, we'll go to adopting the FY 2026 safety performance targets. Hunter, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the board, for having me this afternoon. My name is Hunter Mulhall. I'm a principal planner here on the technical team. Today, I'm here to ask for your adoption of the 2026 transportation safety performance targets. I got a few things on the agenda today before I ask for your motion to adopt those targets. I'm going to give you a little bit of a refresher on our vision for transportation safety in our valley, that was established through our Regional Safety Action Plan adopted by this board in February 1 year ago. I'll talk a little bit about our federal safety performance measures. So we are required to report 5 different performance measures on safety and set targets. I'll show you some of the trends, what we're looking at, and how we're doing at meeting our targets we set for 2025. And I'll share with you the 2026 proposed targets. I'll share a little bit of information with regards to implementation of our Regional Safety Action Plan. We had 5 different emphasis areas identified in that plan. So I'll show you how we're trending with some preliminary data from 2025 there, and then talk a little bit about some transportation safety related work coming across the valley and ask for your motion to adopt those targets. So the regional safety vision is a commitment to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries from our roadway. This was established through the adoption of our Regional Safety Action Plan again here 1 year ago. We understood that this vision is not going to happen overnight. So we set ourselves some measurable kind of performance targets of an interim target of reducing those numbers by 50% over the next 30 years. The targets that I'm asking you to adopt today align with this vision here, as well as the targets we adopted in 2025 also align with this 50% reduction over 30 years. So keep that in mind as we're looking at these numbers. We're required to set these targets for these 5 different performance measures by the Federal Highways Administration each year. We work closely with ITD to look at the crash data, look at the targets they're proposing statewide. They're reported on a 5-year rolling average. So the numbers you'll see are the 5-year averages. The baseline we used to set for that 50% reduction was from data from 2019 to 2023. These performance measures are used in scoring our projects that you all apply for in our transportation improvement program and projects included in our long-range transportation plan. We have a bit of a lag in crash data. It takes about a year or so for those fatal accidents to make it into the official numbers, the fatality analysis reporting system, which is a federal fatality reporting system. So the numbers you'll see today for 2025 are preliminary for now. I don't expect them to change too much, but it could go up or down slightly. We set targets with the adoption of the plan last year for 2025. I don't have the official numbers yet, but I'll show you just shortly here how we're doing with regards to those targets we set last year. So here are the 5 different performance measures we were required to report and set targets for. We look at the number of fatal injuries, number of serious injuries. We set targets for rates. These are normalized by 100 million vehicles mile traveled. And then we set numbers for non-motorized fatal plus serious injury crashes. And so you can see with the first column there is our baseline that we set that 50% reduction for. The second column there is preliminary data from the 5-year averages from 2021 to 2025. And then that far right column is the targets we set for 2025. So we are meeting one of those 5 targets over there. I do think this is for a couple different reasons. We lost 2020 in the last 5-year data set. We all know that that was an anomaly year across the world for every different type of statistic and number out there. So we did see a little bit of a jump because of those low numbers in 2020. I do have some optimism in that we're trending just for the preliminary, the 1 year 2025 numbers trending down for fatalities and serious injuries, but unfortunately trending upward for the non-motorized fatal and serious injury crashes when you just look at the 2025 numbers. So for that, Compass staff and RTAC recommended that we continue to set targets that align with that 50% reduction over 30 years. So that those numbers look like 46 for fatalities, 388 serious injuries, fewer than 51 vulnerable road user fatalities and serious injury accidents, and then we're recommending we adopt the statewide targets for the rates because that's just a good way for us to contextualize how we fit in the statewide picture or compare our numbers to the statewide picture. So before I get to asking you to adopt those numbers, I want to share with you also some of the performance measures we identified in the Regional Safety Action Plan, and these revolve around the 5 emphasis areas we identified in the action plan. The emphasis areas are all around a specific type of crash where we typically saw more fatal and serious injury outcomes. Those include intersection-related crashes, lane departure crashes, vulnerable road user crashes, which we broke out between motorcyclists and bikes and pedestrians, seatbelt related crashes, and impaired driving related crashes. And so compared to the baseline 2019-2023 numbers, we saw, unfortunately, increases in all but 2 of those types of crashes. We did see some drop and reduction in the seatbelt related type crashes and impaired driving crashes. There's some alarming numbers there for motorcycle incidents, where we saw an increase in nearly 14 to the average there. And then the vulnerable road users, we saw an increase of over 9. So just wanted to share that information with you. I want to share some of the work that's going on. We're 1 year into our plan, but there's a lot of things and a lot of momentum going here. We have several different Safe Streets and Roads for All funded type studies or projects going on. You heard about one from Tony on Fairview Avenue that Boise was awarded this year, over $1 million grant to improve safety on Fairview Avenue. Nampa has won several Safe Streets and Roads for All awards. They're currently working on a demonstration project on 12th Avenue to test some new signal type operations and technologies to improve pedestrian safety and auto safety, red light running type countermeasures on that corridor. They also want a road safety audit to do a road safety audit on Northside Boulevard at 2nd and 3rd that ties really nicely into some of the safety planning they've been doing on Yale, just south of there. And then Compass, in partnership with ACHD, ITD, Nampa, and Caldwell, kicked off the Spears Project, which is looking at prioritizing intersections for leading pedestrian intervals and accessible pedestrian signals across the valley. And then I want to note that we held our first officially chartered safety working group meeting last month here in this room with many members of your staff participating in that, where we discussed the performance measures you're seeing today. We talked about Boise and ACHD's Fatality Review Task Force. We got a deep dive into that Nampa 12th Street Avenue demonstration project. We got a presentation from Idaho State Police on their DUI task force. And then talked about our behavioral campaign, Good Move, coming out of Compass, just kind of sharing that good work going on, lessons learned type conversations to continue to move the needle on transportation safety in our valley. So to conclude, so we're on track. Again, we don't have official numbers for our 2025 targets, but we're on track to meet 1 out of those 5 targets from 2025. The Regional Transportation Advisory Committee recommended that we keep setting targets that are in alignment with that Regional Safety Action Plan vision of that 50% reduction over 30 years. And then again, this is an ongoing conversation to have. This information is for you all to gauge and measure our progress or challenges with regards to meeting our safety goals. So this is an ongoing discussion that you'll likely see here you'll see me every year here reporting these numbers. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I do have a question. We adopted the statewide number on rate of fatal crash injuries, even though our regional number was considerably below that. Was there any discussion at RTAC about choosing a lower number for that particular item? We have, per 100,000 miles, we have improved that number just very slightly, even though overall there's been more fatal and serious injuries because of the increase in the amount of traffic. And it seems to me that we've kind of given ourselves a gimme there. And I don't know why, because that's probably the place that hits home to most of us, the hardest and the deepest. Just wondered what kind of conversation you guys had around that.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Elaine. Yeah, we haven't, the regional targets, the numbers were the easy ones, the conversations to have. The rates are a little bit more difficult. Those numbers are estimated from our travel demand model. I hesitate to change that too much because I just don't think we have a solid base foundation of data that we can look at or trends at this moment. It's definitely a conversation I think moving forward we can have, but to answer the question directly, I think the numbers were the easiest part. I just don't think we've had the harder discussion about the rates yet.
I'm comfortable adopting what we've got before us today, but would ask staff and our staffs to really dig in, especially to those numbers, and see if we can't set a more aggressive goal.
Thank you.
Sir. Hunter, real quick, have you drilled down to see the analysis of how many, because the motorcycle accidents are so high, as to the cause of those? Because most motorcycle injury fatalities are due to head injuries. So, and I know we don't have a helmet law. So what have we considered that, especially with Elaine's comments on that, is looking down into that? Our analysis any different? Do we drill down, or do we just kind of take it across the top?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mayor. We haven't dug down into the causes there. I admittedly think that motorcyclists was one of those ones that kind of gets passed over in our plan and say we need to do something. We need to do more education on safety and motorcycle helmets. We haven't done a deep dive into the exact cause of those. I was at a meeting a month ago with ITD at the Office of Highway Safety. I made a really good contact there of somebody that is really an expert on motorcycle safety and things we can do. So my plan is to bring her in to talk to our safety working group about some of the things we can do to improve motorcycle safety. Because admittedly, it was something that was kind of skimmed over in our safety action plan, and we didn't really do a deep dive into the actions we can take to improve motorcycle safety.
I appreciate that. We'll at least look into it, especially, via the e-bikes coming up and the, bicyclists and helmet requirements for our youth. I think you're going to find a high probability of the fatalities are due to head injury. Those just from experience. So thanks.
Yeah, that's another good point. Is another topic that's come up is the motorized electric type motorcycles and devices as well. Something that we need to start having those discussions on, because it's a growing concern.
Kent Goldthorpe had a question.
Yeah, I just a comment and a question. I was wondering if any consideration whatsoever was given to the safety discussion and development of goals by the legislation passed last year to ensure that the roadways were pretty much stacked for the motorists, and safety was, for the rest of the world, was a much lower priority. How much impact did that have on your discussion or decision to present this?
Thank you, Commissioner, Mr. Chair. It was a topic that was coming up. The plan was pretty much done and finalized, wrapped up at the end of 2024 and adopted at the beginning of 2025. I think we're still seeing what's playing out with some of that legislation. So I don't think it was a factor or a big discussion. It was definitely on the radar, but I don't think it was something we can account for with our changing our vision or these targets.
Well, I'm concerned that we're doing this all very much prematurely without that. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I might add just one more comment here. It's hard to approve a certain number, when you're talking about people's lives. So I understand like the sensitivity here. And it's also kind of hard to approve something when you are wondering what sort of control you have as an agency or as a city, as a state, on what you can actually do about it. The numbers I think that you presented here are actually like relatively similar to numbers that we're seeing across the country. We have a traffic fatality review task force at the city of Boise that partners the city, the police department, ACHD together. And the numbers that we see in the city mirror the numbers that we see in the state, and the numbers that we see in the state mirror the numbers that we see at a national level. to motorcycles, most of those motorcycle crashes, they were going 80, 90, 100 miles an hour. And the helmets probably weren't necessarily the thing that would have saved them. It was the excessive speed. But then you ask yourself, well, what can we do about that? Well, increase enforcement, a variety of other things. We think that some of the folks were under, some sort of substance abuse that we weren't able to test, kratom, which, the state's taking on. So there's multiple things I think that we're looking at here. And again, I think the hard part is that we're looking at a number and say, how do we reduce this over 50% over a period of time without actually knowing what the specific plan would be to do that? And I guess, I want to call her council member Clegg, but Elaine, Elaine over here, I think that there is some heartburn in looking at those numbers and as a local level saying we should be doing things to try to reduce it more than that. And I guess I would be able to approve this, but I would also like to see how can we be looking at a more intentional level from the state and figuring out what those goals are and pushing them to actually say, well, if we have a goal, what are the steps that we're doing to move towards that goal? And I guess that's not quite what I see here in the presentation. I see some projects that are approved, some really good grants on Fairview and some other things, but I don't necessarily see a plan at a broader level of how everything is being worked to reduce and what those steps might be. That I think would be what would get us to those lower numbers.
Mr. Chair, council member. Yeah, that's a lot of that information is laid out in our action plan. And I'm happy to bring some of that information back to this board and continue this conversation with some of those action items that we have in our safety plan. We have some really good data analysis telling us where we have the problems. I think that's step number one. Step number two is we have a really good toolkit in that plan of things we could do that we know work to kind of mitigate those issues. So we know the when or the where and the what. I think it's the finding the money, right, and the resources is kind of one of our biggest challenges right now. And so I'm happy to kind of bring back some of that information and those resources to this group. There's also some really good concepts for projects in that safety action plan on some of these high injury corridors as well. So there's really a good roadmap in there. It's I guess the accountability is why I'm bringing these numbers back to make sure that we're getting through that. The safety working group is set up to ensure that we're ticking off those action items that are identified in the plan. And so I'm happy to kind of bring back some of that information and share that with you more as we keep working through this.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Hunter. It's good to know you guys have those actions, and it would be nice to see them. It occurs to me that one of the most impactful things that Compass could do is not actions particularly for safety based on what we see on the roadway, but proactive action in the design world. If I look, it has been a couple of years since I looked at it, but as I looked at roadway design and crashes, and especially serious injury crashes, it becomes pretty clear that there are design tools that you can use when you redo roadways, both with narrowing lanes and expanding sidewalks and a variety of things. And I know, the legislation that Commissioner Goldthorpe referenced makes that a little bit more difficult, but on a new roadway, it doesn't, because you're not changing anything. You're designing it right in the first place. And certainly we should take those reactive safety actions, but I think it's also really terribly important to make sure we get the design right in the first place, because if you look around the valley, the roads that have those factors already built into them are the ones that have the lowest crashes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Elaine, that's a great point, and that's actually one of the first actions that we were talking about in the safety working group. I failed to mention that, but one of the needs or the actions was how do we better incorporate safety into our capital planning process and design. And so there was two pieces of work that we brought to the safety working group last month. One of them being a design guide, really just a 2-page brochure on how the safe systems approach should be implemented in roadway design. So I encourage you all to go on our safety page and look at that 2-page brochure. It's short, quick, and easy. Elaine mentioned the roads, the road that was used in the example is Whitewater Boulevard with the separation, the roundabouts, the speed kind of measures that are put in place there. So it's really kind of demonstrating those best practices in roadway design. And then another tool that we demonstrated there was it's like a kind of a preliminary type spreadsheet tool where you can evaluate different design factors based on your road volumes, pedestrian volumes. So you could see kind of the different alternatives and what countermeasures you're using and kind of what the outcomes may be. So those are some of the tools and guidance that we're putting out there for your staff and sharing those things as well. So.
Any other comments? You have a motion for us?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that the Compass Board adopt the 2026 safety targets as recommended by the Regional Transportation Advisory Committee with caveat that they follow the direction of the discussion today.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
And that would be,
Kent Goldthorpe.
thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Our Secretary Treasurer-elect and the Finance Committee members, I'll turn that over to Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this item is to formally elect the 2026 Compass Board Secretary Treasurer. For those who don't remember, at the December board meeting, the board approved the slate for chair, chair-elect, vice chair, and left the Secretary Treasurer position open because that typically rotates between counties. We were waiting for the formal service from some of our new Canyon County members. At the January Executive Committee meeting, the Executive Committee nominated Mayor Rick Hogeboom from City of Nampa to serve as the Secretary Treasurer. And so with that, we bring this to the board today for formal election as the Secretary Treasurer.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion if I can to elect Mr. Mayor Hogeboom, our good friend, to the Secretary Treasurer position.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any comments? All in,
Chairman, I just would say, I think this board is lucky to get Mayor Hogeboom in this position. Congratulations.
Absolutely.
You really need. Thank you for the call.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, this is Kent Goldthorpe again. Would you please mark me down as abstain?
Thank you. We will do that. Finance Committee members?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this item is to confirm the 2026 Finance Committee members. And I have learned that there's usually an action slide. So the recommended motion is going to be for the Compass Board of Directors to confirm the 2026 Finance Committee members that are identified in your packets. I believe it's page 61 in your packets. However, before seeking the motion, we do want to note one of the changes. So firstly, I'll draw attention. So with his election as Secretary Treasurer, Mayor Hogeboom, then automatically is on the Finance Committee for a one-year term. The new appointments or reappointments in this case from Ada County are Mayor Chadwick from City of Star and Commissioner Beck from Ada County. They'll now serve the typical two-year term that would expire in January of 2028. And then from Canyon County, as identified in the packet, Councilmember Heyer will serve a term continuing through January of 2028. And then the last change, and this is a change from what is in the packet, is because Councilmember Rodriguez is not going to be serving on the Compass Board. The replacement will be from Canyon County will be Commissioner Matt Newton from Highway District 4, and he would serve out the remainder of that term. So his term would end in January of 2027. And so with that, we would seek a motion to confirm the appointments as announced in the meeting.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion that the Compass Board of Directors confirms the 2026 Finance Committee members.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Yes, passes. Let's see. We have more from Craig on our legislative updates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we're going to actually do an interesting presentation today. So we're providing a legislative update, but I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to hear from Idaho Transportation Department about their budget as it stands and is potentially being influenced by some of the legislative activities happening this session. And so with that, I'm going to turn over the first part of my presentation to Dave Tolman from ITD, the Chief Administrative Officer with ITD. And I think he's got control of the slides at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here today. Make this thing work. First of all, my name is Dave Tolman. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer at the department. What that means, I'm over the accounting, finance, budgeting side, as well as our IT, procurement, and our capital facilities. ITD operates just over 700 buildings statewide. So we've got just a few things going on in our neck of the woods. Things I'd like to cover with today are some slides that we shared with the Transportation Board in January, and just kind of give you an update of where we're at to date through the legislative session. I'd like to review the funding levels that ITD operates within, look at our funding priorities, funding philosophy for the resource utilization of how best that we look at to utilize those. I want to talk briefly also about the strategic initiatives or the general fund portion of the dollars. That's a big conversation going on in the legislature as we speak. And then also talk briefly about the TECM program, which is the funding that comes to the department from a sales tax transfer. ITD's revenue sources for fiscal year 26, the year we're in right now, and the information I'm showing here are just those that are directly administered to ITD. So the federal share, $360 million, are the ones that ITD has. It does not include the distributions or the projects that go out to the local units of government. It also excludes some of the FTA money that, again, is passed through to local units of government through us. So those are our major categories: federal funding, state user fees. Those are what we call dedicated funds. Those are primarily fuel tax, vehicle registrations. ITD receives 60% of those that are collected statewide. The other 40% are distributed to the locals through the formula. The other state funds are miscellaneous revenue. DMV fees are a sale of equipment. We have a buyback program on our replacement equipment, various other types of funds. You can see the strategic initiatives for FY26 is set at $165 million. That transfer was made in November. And then the sales tax transfer that goes into the TECM fund of $100 million for this year are the primary sources of revenue for the department. So as we look at the federal aid program, talk about the red part of the pie chart. These are some of the required programs that we operate and share with local units of government. At this point in time, we don't see any changes to that. As you know, the reauthorization for a new Federal Highway Act expires the end of this federal fiscal year, which is the end of September. In fact, we have people back in DC as we speak, working with our congressional delegation on that reauthorization for the next highway bill. We'll see what happens. Previously, sometimes those take multiple years to get enacted, but there is a push to try and accelerate that for this year. On the state side, the dark blue pie chart, the user fees, I just want to kind of give you an update of where we're at that we see. This is through the end of December, the first 6 months of the state fiscal year. You can see the 26 there to the second bar from the right is the forecast, and the actuals through the end of December are the far bar chart. In all categories, the transfers from the HDA, the fuel reg direct, that is simply the increase in revenues that were passed by the legislature in 2015. It's currently legislation to track those separately, so we continue to do that. And then the ethanol transfer that comes in, and then some of the miscellaneous fees. In all categories, we are ahead of forecast in not by a lot, but revenue for those sources of revenue continue to come in we're about 2 to 3% ahead of forecast for this fiscal year. The challenge we've had on some of this is getting the timing lined up by months, but overall, things are going well in that category. So drill down a little bit more on each of these funds. You can see the funding sources that have come into the department by fiscal year and what we anticipate coming in for the future fiscal year. Federal funds 362 for 27. State dedicated money of 367. This does not include the miscellaneous sources of revenue in this category. And then you can see the TECM last year, House Bill 25 increased the transfer from sales tax into this fund by $60 million, incrementing $20 million each year, beginning in 26. So that's $100 million from what it used to be. Next year will be 120, and then the subsequent year, 28, it will cap out at the 140 million, and with an additional 45 million that goes to be distributed to local units of government, again through the distribution formula. The Strategic Initiatives Fund is the general fund transfer into what we call the Strategic Initiatives Program Fund. FY24, FY25 was just under $182 million just for ITD. An additional 40% was also about $121 million was going to local units of government. In 26, the legislation was for $165 million was our appropriation. The governor recommended a holdback of $45 million of that. All of that came from the ITD share. None of that is being impacted on the local units of government. JFAC just acted last week and passed the bill out of the Appropriations Committee to make that $45 million transfer permanent in this year and to have that acted upon by the full body of the House and the Senate. Then FY27, the recommendation is to take that number to zero. Total that was going into this for this fiscal year was 275 million, of which local units got 110. We got the 165, but in 27, that number goes to zero. Some of the holdbacks in this year where we're taking that from, as you can see on that little box in the screen, we got to absorb that by impacting programs that normally come out of there. It's important to note those, both the TECM Fund and the Strategic Initiatives Fund, none of that goes to operate the department. All of it goes to our construction program, either by way of consultant payments, contractor payments, land purchase, whatever the case may be. But none of those last two funds go to operate the department. So the programs that are impacted is our studies, some of our supporting infrastructure asset projects, and then looking at a land acquisition on the State Highway 55 west of Nampa, and then match on the TECM program that was set up for that. And I'll talk a little bit more about that match when I talk about the TECM program in just a little bit. As we look at how we prioritize the resources and utilize those that come to the department, we've got a priority, relatively simple, but it does make it complicated at times. So our number one priority is to operate the system that we already have. We've got to keep what's out there statewide in operational standpoint, from winter operations to lane striping to guardrail repair, all those normal things that just keeps to operate the system that we have. The next one we have is to preserve the system. Those are more of the light duty treatments to get the pavements, bridges, the assets out there, actually for them to reach their intended life. The third priority would be to restore the system that we've got. That's the more major treatments. That could be a rebuild, a deck replacement on a bridge, perhaps even a bridge replacement, depending on the need out there. And then the last priority is expand. For the last number of years, ITD, through the legislative action, have been very fortunate to be able to use that last category in lots of areas around the state to the benefit of the citizens of Idaho. And as we have these revenue adjustments coming in there, we're going to start with number 4 and back into the impact that it has on our current system. So the strategic initiatives, this is where the general fund money comes into. Strategic initiatives, a fund established by the legislature that has very unique, has criteria of how we can spend those monies. To date, we've been using a big portion of this as a match portion or an additive to the TECM bonded program that we've done. We bond about between 75 and 80% of the project and use the rest of the money from the Strategic Initiatives Program to complete those projects. The reason we do that in construction projects, particularly these large ones, the tail end takes an extended period of time to pay out. And so the bond program, we're limited to the time frame in which we need to pay out those proceeds. And so we use those dollars at the end to pay those out. Supporting infrastructure asset projects. These are things like guardrail, end treatments, retaining walls, fencing, culverts, landslide repairs, rock scaling, all the different types of things that support the actual pavements and bridges. Again, these are all done by contracts. None of these are done for these types of projects are done by the state forces. We also had set aside money for federal discretionary grants. We apply for grants periodically and use this as the match. Most of the discretionary grants do require some type of non-federal match. And so this is where we were going to put a number of those in there. Corridor studies. And then at time, the board was seeking an increase in what we call board unallocated. That's simply a way in which our transportation board has some funding available to be able to respond in the current year without upsetting any project that's been approved for in the TIP. So we've been asked for questions of what types of projects could be impacted with the elimination of the strategic initiatives funding. I've got on the slide here some of the projects that we've provided to the legislature of the types of projects around the state. And you can see there in the middle, we've got money for the TECM bond match, for the grant set aside for some of we do have a reserve, and the reserve we use that for primarily is for the ups and downs of either the bids come in over what our estimate was, or if we have revenue adjustments that need to come in there. So it's not that the money isn't used, but we do have a little reserve set aside for those types of things. So those are some of the projects statewide that are funded with this program that will be impacted as we advance forward with the current budget recommendations that is before the legislature at this point in time. As we look at the TECM program, just a quick reminder, it's a transfer of sales tax receipt into the TECM fund. The transfer of sales tax for the locals go directly to the local highway distribution fund to be distributed out through that formula. And so They don't carry the same restrictions that the TECM fund does for ITD. The bonds that we sold to date, last bond sale was last March, consumes just under $81 million in debt service every year. Proceeds, a little over 1.3 billion, has been or is being invested in projects throughout the state with the average interest rate on that 1.3 billion of just under 4%. So our interest rate that we're paying at the state is very good. The ratings on these bonds are rated at AAA currently. Next possible bond sale that we could do would be for a closing in July. The bond covenants we have restrict the amount. They do a look back. What was the amount of receipts that you had for the prior fiscal year? And we can't have debt service exceed that. So prior fiscal year in 26 was 25. We had 80 million. We're already at that cap. So we would need to close after the new fiscal year going forward. The TECM projects per code are focused on expanding the system and mitigating congestion. That's the criteria we have to use for use of these dollars in that category. So as we look at what we need to do going forward is what are our options? You can see there on the chart at the bottom, the amount of anticipated money coming into the department in 28 is where it reaches at the $140 million. But we're looking at some options with our board. Do we go ahead and bond aggressively as we've done in the past? That's one option, but to do that without the Strategic Initiatives Fund, how we would do those, what we call the bond match, although it's not like federal funds. Or do we reduce the size of the program, just kind of slow it down, delay the next sale, kind of see what happens where we're at, or simply use the receipts, that bottom line on that table, for some pay-as-you-go projects to continue to develop, get things ready to where it's a little bit perhaps a more favorable environment to go out and push those projects forward. We're still in the listening phase. No decisions have been made. Our board's going to be evaluating this over the next number of months as we develop this project going forward. So what are some of the projects that were planned over the next, if we were to do a 3 bond series to consume the money of the additional 2020? These are the types of projects that were on the list. They're all in board authorized corridors that we can work on. The ones closest to FY26 are almost bid ready to be able to go out to do that. Some of the ones further out are in the process of being designed and or right away being acquired. And so those are some of the projects that will be potentially under consideration by the board of how best to continue to advance those forward in this environment. So what are we doing today? We are working with our districts to get them working on the next update to the ITIP that ITD does. We do a 7-year program look forward. We have set targets for our pavements at $200 million a year, our bridge program at $100 million a year, can keep the other programs we have going forward. Without excluding the increased dollars coming into TECM, after we fund the operations of the department, we've got about $330 million to do our construction program. And you can see $300 million of it, the board has set targets to consume it by maintaining the system that we currently have. Again, we're waiting and seeing what happens in the legislature before any final decisions have been made. That's kind of where ITD is at this point in time. Our budget for our what they call our enhancement budget or the line items is up before the Joint Finance Appropriation Committee on March 10th. They set the maintenance budget a week ago Friday. So about 10 days ago, they set the maintenance budget for ITD's budget going forward. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Open for questions.
Everybody's looking at me. So what's the likelihood of that Highway 44 project being cut into STAR? which is a major bottleneck that we have to the new Highway 16 project that's going to be opening up here in the next couple of years.
Mr. Chairman, I think any of the expansion projects are a possibility. I'm not going to say it's not. I don't know that it is. Our board hasn't made the decision. We recognize the pressure that is on that corridor and very aware of that. As you know, the interchange is under construction right now. So we're not blind to the need of your community. But I can't answer that today because I don't have the answer.
That's fair. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Informative.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And now I'll move into my portion of the legislative overview. And I will actually tie back in a little bit to some of what you did just see and how it relates to what we're undertaking on behalf of Compass with the legislature as well. So just to give a quick update where the status of the session is right now, it's approximately the halfway point. And I realize too, as I say this, many of you are already getting legislative updates from your own teams or your own associations. And so I apologize for redundancy on that, but we'll still get through this so that we're all, at least for within Compass, all on the same page. As of Friday afternoon, there had been 418 bills total introduced, bills, resolutions, et cetera, that have been introduced. The budget remains the focal point. Budget discussions are still the focal point of what the legislature is undertaking. I do want to note that Compass had a very successful legislative reception on February 5th. We had 8 board members who were there, 9 Compass staff. We had a total of 30 legislators, including the Majority Leader from the House, the Chair of the House Transportation Committee. I mean, we had a really, really good Chair Ways and Means. We had a really good group, and I think many of you had an opportunity to talk with them as well, and so that was really, really successful. Part of what made it a success is how we partnered with the other metropolitan planning organizations around the state, and so they were also there. Staff were there, and I think there were 1 or 2 board members from some of those other MPOs as well. For those who were there, I kind of got cornered for most of it. Spent about an hour talking with the chair of the Transportation Committee. And so I didn't get a chance to talk to quite as many of the legislators as I'd been hoping, but it was still a very successful reception. We're looking forward to doing that again next year. And continuing to partner with the other MPOs around the state to really highlight the need of the urban parts of the state. I have legislative meetings that are ongoing. Have, I think, 1 scheduled for this week and maybe 2 others that we're working to get scheduled, so they'll probably happen still. Our lobbyist is very active on our behalf. They're sitting in the committee meetings, they're sitting in the JFAC meetings, monitoring what is going on with the state's budget and letting me know how that may translate to the bottom lines for both ITD and for us as a region. And then finally, I just want to note that we put together, and I think I shared it prior to the legislative reception, a draft. We put together a commentary that's been submitted for publication. Briefly, the main points of this commentary are, an acknowledgement that the short-term cuts that the state is facing right now are understandable, but they also carry these long-term impacts and risks. That the statewide funding gap and our funding gap is already very substantial. We know, ours is roughly $200 or $200 million a year that of transportation investments just in Ada and Canyon counties that we're falling behind on. We note that Idaho's revenue structure is outdated. It's been studied in the past, but there's not yet been a permanent solution. that can really address the growth of the state and the growth of our region. And so therefore, we need a serious statewide conversation to talk about permanent, sustainable revenue for transportation. And so this has been submitted for publication in a couple locations, a couple publications in the region. We're waiting to hear back. Hopefully we'll get these, we'll get this out soon, and we'll be able to sort of start that conversation at the state level. Certainly something that I'm talking about when I'm meeting individually with legislators, and our lobbyists are fully aware of the content of what's in this messaging as well. So with that, I'm going to translate. And before we really dig into this slide, I truly want to emphasize, this is Compass's attempt to translate what we have been hearing from ITD about their budget impacts and our, what we're hearing about the statewide impacts as well. And so this is not, particularly because we just heard from ITD, this is not intended in any way to undermine, what we just heard, because everything, we're completely in alignment with the process that they're going through, and we understand it. But for the benefit of our board, we're taking that image of all of the TECM projects in the state, and then focusing really on how the TECM bonding process is really fairly closely tied to the Strategic Initiatives Fund. And because there's the proposal to basically zero out the Strategic Initiatives Fund for next year, that could very likely have impacts on the timing of our region's currently programmed TECM projects. And so we put this together just to demonstrate, what that looks like in a calendar format, not really like the tip, but just kind of showing how that can play out. And I will just note that, given what we're now anticipating for that bonding not happening until summer of 2026, summer later this year, and how that impacts the timing of projects starting and being able to get underway, that most of the ones that are scheduled for 27 are probably at this point highly likely. They could start early, but they probably are going to change fiscal year, even though that can sometimes just be a change by a few months. But those are likely to happen. The bottom part of this slide, and I shared the top part with the executive committee in their meeting earlier this month. The bottom part of the slide I added recently. We are hearing through our lobbyists that there is no guarantees, but there is some appetite with some key members relating to finance and revenue for restoring some of the strategic initiative funds from the cuts that have been proposed. And so to sort of reinforce that messaging, I wanted to be able to demonstrate what the sort of the time cost of these delays translates to. And so the current total of of the 4 projects that are still programmed in fiscal year 27 is $213 million. And then you can see what that range of inflation just in construction costs. And I really want to emphasize, this is just the construction cost inflation. If it's delaying right-of-way purchases and things like that, that can increase this quite a bit beyond that. I don't know how many, the number of times that I've seen a project first listed in a long-range plan or even in a transportation improvement program at particular costs, say, $50 million, and then it ends up getting pushed or delayed or whatever, and suddenly it's $80 million to $120 million for that same project to happen, and it's been 4 or 5 years. It's because of, particularly in rapidly growing urban areas like what we have, the land values start to go up quite a bit, particularly when alignments for projects are already known. And so this is something that Our lobbyist is actually showing, I think, today, this afternoon, to some of the JFAC members, informally, not formal testimony, but informally showing them just to point out the benefits of being able to restore some of that funding. So next, I'm just going to run through, and I apologize for the small text. I'll work on that for the future. But these slides will be posted on the webpage for the board sometime after the meeting. But this is showing some of the legislation that we're tracking, and then whether Compass is taking a position on these, or whether we're really just monitoring. And so I'll just briefly run through these. The first one is a change to the STAR program, which is the state tax anticipation revenue program. It's essentially, it's a form of a public-private partnership where retail development can, actually, I should turn it over to Jason Brinkman, who just gave a brilliant presentation on this to the IT board last week. But the STAR program basically allows a retail developer to pay for the infrastructure improvements associated with their new development, and then recoup those costs through the state's payment to them of new sales tax revenue that's generated from that development. And then once that cost has been repaid, then the state continues to receive the sales tax revenue. So the current law is written where the minimum project cost is $6 million and the maximum is $35 million. The new proposal, which is moving pretty rapidly, decreases, and I'll talk about that change as well, but decreases the minimum project total to $5 million from the $6 million, and increases the maximum amount to $100 million from the $35 million that it had been. With the executive committee's direction, I'm preparing a letter to actively support this once it moves to the Senate, and we'll have that ready to go shortly. I do also want to note, and obviously with bills like this, there are always a number of stakeholders that are involved and engaging on these. But I do want to note that the timing, when I showed this to the executive committee, the cap was $6 million, or sorry, the proposed floor was going to be $10 million. And we had a lot of discussion in the executive committee about whether that could be a lower amount. Shortly after the executive committee meeting, I had a call with our lobbyist team, and I asked them to look into whether there was an appetite for lowering that amount. And the 2 days later, the bill sponsor, Representative Monks, updated that number to $5 million. So he lowered the number. So possibly, I mean, we're contributing to the discussion at least. I wouldn't want to claim that we were the only ones doing that, because I'm fairly sure there were other stakeholders involved in that conversation. But hopefully we are being able to play a little bit of a role in that. The next one down, House Bill 508, is would amend the law around the provision of pedestrian bicycle facilities. And basically the primary thing that it does is it clarifies that federal dollars, so like our Transportation Alternatives Program money that we receive, or other federal sources, can be used for that type of infrastructure. And the next two, I'm going to kind of group them together. They're basically cleaning up. Oh, pardon me.
Sorry to delay the wonderful report. I just wanted to briefly note on 508, the one that you just moved off of, our Public Works Director and Transportation Director is going to be meeting with Palmer and Green to seek the addition of 3 words: maintaining existing roadways, as one of the qualifying uses, and to amend also the title under 4605 to have maintain added to widening or straightening new and existing highways for the primary benefit of motor vehicles. So we just want clarifying language that to maintain existing as an allowable use. So I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's also a really good opportunity for me to just remind everyone, if you hear of or are involved with legislation that affects any of the policy positions that the Compass Board has, please let me know. So I'll reach out, Mayor, to try to get that language from you. That doesn't sound like it would be something that would impact our interest in supporting it. If anything, it would probably strengthen it. And so we'll continue to probably support that one. The next two are really, like I was starting to say, they really just clean up the formula that distributes, that provides a 60-40 distribution between the state and local agencies. They do this, different funding sources, but basically they're removing language that stepped the numbers in to the current 60-40 split from the previous versions of those splits. And they've been at 60-40 and they're holding at 60-40. And so they're taking out the languages that in the code that says what we were supposed to do in fiscal year 23 and 24 that are no longer relevant. So next, there are a number of bills that we're still learning about. So there's some TBDs because they're not yet even introduced, but we are anticipating still that there will be some legislation that's addressing full or partial restoration of funding. Even, like I said, this is very fluid. And so even from when I prepared these slides yesterday and the conversations I've had this morning, I've learned more. So it's not really to keep the TECM projects on schedule, but it's really to keep the strategic initiatives or some amount of the strategic initiatives funding active. Again, no bill yet introduced, but if that happens, we would study it pretty carefully and almost certainly seek to support that. Then we're also anticipating language that would address the HB 389 issues, specifically from the perspective that we've talked about here at the board, to remove the 90% assessment limitation on new construction rolls. Still awaiting introduction of that bill. And once it's, and I'm seeing if we could recognize.
Mr. Chair, Mayor Hogaboom and I have been very involved with that bill with the speaker, and I had a meeting this morning, and we're going to see draft legislation, hopefully this afternoon on this, and another meeting we have in the morning with them. So there's going to be a lot more changes than that to 389, hopefully. And we can be optimistic, or we don't have to, may not be optimistic with some, that it'll get heard, but we think it's going to get heard for certain on to make some changes. And so I'll let you know as soon as that comes out, so you can inform everybody.
Thank you. And the executive committee did ask me to put together a letter of support for that. And it's going to, how exactly I write that is going to really depend on what the final bill looks like so that I can tie it particularly to our positions. The next few are relating to housing. And so, because Compass has this position statement relating to housing and infrastructure, we're monitoring these very closely, but at this point, there's nothing to support, or there's really no other action we can take other than monitoring and trying to keep track and then note if something were to come out that would tie back to the Compass position statements. But there are, like I said, there are multiple bills relating to housing affordability. A set of those were held in committee last week. That typically effectively kills, as I understand it, for Idaho at least, that effectively kills the legislation, although it could come back in some other form. But that was a decision act. They chose to hold it in committee rather than to send it to be amended. And then you can kind of see the others that are out there posted. And then the last one I'll just note is there's again a waiting bill. There's nothing introduced yet, but there's language that's circulating that would address the proportionate share of highway distribution account funds for cities that are in more than one county. And so we're kind of waiting to see what the final language on that looks like, but it's one that we would probably be able to support, particularly if it enhances the revenue options available for any of our cities. And so with that, I think that's all. I'm happy to have any further discussion or updates. Again, just a reminder, if you hear of something that you think may be relevant for the Compass positions, we've got a team who can provide information, find legislation, and put out both formal and potentially informal messaging to legislators on behalf of Compass. So please let me know, and I can try to engage on those as well.
Thanks for keeping track of the legislature for us. Okay, moving on, we have some informational items in your packets. Our next regular scheduled meeting will be April 27th. And is there any other things that need to come before the board at this time? If not, I'll stand for the most important motion of the day. Love it. I don't think we need to call for a vote, but we'll call it adjourned.